My guest today on the Hotelier Huddle is none other than Andrew Taylor, founder and managing director of Creative Property. We spoke about his career developing hotels, his well-informed predictions on the next generation of hotels, and what traditional operators may need to catch up to. And I loved what he had to say about the deconstructed hospitality experience. It was a great chat. I learned a lot. My guest today on the Hotelier Huddle is Andrew Taylor. His career journey so far includes development manager, Mirvac, from 2006 to 2011, which is where we met, where he was signing deals so fast my team and I could barely catch a breath between setting them live for bookings. And then he was director of acquisitions and development for Pacific region Starwood hotels and resorts worldwide for nearly 6 years, if I've got that right. And now Andrew is founder and managing director of Creative Property since 2017, nearly 9 years. Wow, I wonder if it feels like that. Welcome, Andrew. Thank you for taking the time to join the huddle.
Pleasure, my friend. So nice to catch up again, Shannon. So yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's lovely to be here.
You are squarely qualify as a member of the huddle because, you know, you've opened and built and developed quite a lot of hotels. So you're a pride member of the huddle, Andrew.
And we're fellow entrepreneurs now.
I know, right? I know.
Isn't that
That's
cool?
a little bit scary, but I'll take it. Yeah, I'll take it. I'll take it. I'd like to start right back at the beginning of your working life, Andrew, if I may, because you trained as a lawyer, but you built your career developing hotels, which I just wonder what made you realize that arguing about hotels was less fun than actually building them, or is argument still a required element and that's actually fun for you?
I think I was desperate to get out of the law, to be honest, like to be perfectly frank. So I wasn't probably the best legal practitioner there was. And fair to say, I don't have my practicing certificate anymore. But it's such a great degree, Shannon, because it helps you navigate so many things being a lawyer, right? So, and when you and I met, I think it was when I had spent about 5 or 6 years in the world of commercial law, and I got a bit of a taste for real estate development by working in some commercial, practices, doing leasing and property development.
Sure.
And I had a client that was developing pubs and hospitality venues. But what I realized was that rather than being the guy who was kind of trying to keep our clients out of trouble, I wanted to be the guy that was navigating all the trouble, all the fun. So yeah, in a nutshell, I guess I realized that my passion was for working in the deal, not just on the deal, So I think
that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
In amongst it.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
In amongst it. And I think I was so lucky because, and I'm sure so many of you, your listeners, but also you would, I'm pretty sure, agree with this, but once you are lucky enough to touch the world of hotels, you probably never look back. And it gets in your blood. And
once
for
you're
me,
in,
I guess it was
you can
just
try to leave.
Yeah.
You can check out anytime you like,
That's
but you
right.
can never leave.
Yeah, that's right. That's a great saying. And but I think in the world of development, just if you don't mind me saying, is that the skill set's quite varied. So I don't think it's about having just one piece of the talent and the skill set to say, right, well, I'm good at negotiating. I think I realized very early on that I had to be good at a whole range of things. And so I was just a case of learning, finance, design, and my creative side really sort of came out during the development phase.
Yes.
Sales, marketing, analytics around in terms of what you do. And I think that that's the beauty of why I love it so much, is because it's so different each day, and each project. So yeah, love it. Wouldn't change it for the world.
No, indeed. I wouldn't change a thing either. Even the really messy, ugly stuff, I wouldn't change a thing. But that must have served you very well moving into the Starwood years, because during your 5+ years leading
Yeah.
acquisitions for Starwood across the Pacific region, um, I wonder if, design led versus brand led, if,
Yeah.
your company now sort of champions design led hotels. And I wonder, how do you convince investors that perfect FF&E, furniture, fixture, and equipment, for those of you playing acronym bingo at
Yeah.
home, curated,
Yeah.
that, perfect FF&E and curated vibes actually translate to profit per available room?
Actually make more money. I
Yeah.
mean, you know what I
Yeah.
think it is that I reflect on my career and I honestly think you find the business and the company that you work for um, at the right stage of your life and from a
Sure.
professional point of view. I look
Or it
back
finds
on
you.
where it finds you and I look back at Mirvac and I say, wow, I was so lucky and fortunate because I was like the Junior Johnson of the development world. And I probably had some great mentors around that kind of set the tone and helped me
Sure.
learn things from all over, the Andrew Turners of the world, the Shannon Knapps, the
Yeah, and sorry to interrupt, but, like I said before, that was where you and I met, and when I joined, we were a group of 18 hotels, and with your efforts and Andrew Turner and all of that magic sauce, we grew it to 46 in a pretty
yeah,
quick amount of time, but they were very
yeah.
special properties. It wasn't just quick and dirty, but it was a very special magic sauce, and it was just a really good time, wasn't it?
It was so good, and I think we were lucky enough that the business, it felt entrepreneurial, and we had this sort of license to go and make the best of it that we could. Like, and that's probably what I feel like Andrew was so good at, is he was like, we have this amount of money and resources, but we can actually do anything we like. And I mean, and this, I'm jumping ahead here, but one of the things ultimately got to work on that still I find fascinating and crazy is the pitch that we did with the QE2, the cruise
Oh,
liner, to turn it
yes.
into a hotel. And
Oh,
that
yeah.
was in the Mirvac days. And I kind of went, I mean, it was through our Middle East contacts at the time and our partnership with Nikhil, and the GFC ultimately took care of it, as in,
Yeah,
but the pitch was still
yeah.
real, and the opportunity was very much live. And
Sure.
if you look back on it and you ask this question about design led versus big brands, I think what appealed so much about Mirvac at the time, and we're still seeing it in the industry, is people want a company that they feel like cares about them. So it's not so
Yes.
big and so overwhelmingly scary
No,
and
cookie cutter.
cookie cutter.
Hmm.
And I think so. In some ways, you and I are maybe I'll talk for myself, but that independent thinking approach has never really left me. And so when I went across to Starwood, I think the reason I actually became quite successful there was because instead of taking the US attitude of a big American listed company who had brands like Sheraton, that, household names, I actually,
Very
I remember
strong, very
saying to
strong.
them, yeah, they were strong names. And I said to them, but the problem is, guys, in Australia, no one cares, as in,
No one
you're
cares.
kind of not talking to the customer or in this case, the investors and the owners that are locally in a way that they need and, need to be, not respected, but just recognized. And
Sure.
once we started to kind of change the narrative and explain to them that we were also good guys, like
Yeah,
that we weren't
yeah.
going to, rob them and literally look after their assets and make the most of every opportunity and relationship we got, it became quite an easy sell. I'll honestly say that, because you're selling this incredible machine with all the great brands that were behind it. Like, and I
The
remember saying to
distribution
someone, it was
machine and
like,
the loyalty and all of those, the nuts and
oh
bolts.
man,
Sure.
exactly. And I think I said to someone, it was like going from the local, baseball comp to the major league. It was and I don't say that with,
I love
I
that you
say it
said baseball
modestly.
instead of cricket, by the way.
Right. You know what I'm trying to say is that when a company that lives and breathes its hotels and its brands, I think I started to get opened up to a different world, and that was the world of, for example, Barry Sternlicht's W Hotel brand,
Yes.
and brands like the Westin, and which have their Heavenly Bed and their Heavenly wellness program, which 20 years ago was quite revolutionary or quite radical.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I'm not here to talk about
No,
Starwood,
no.
but I think what you can probably gather from my passion is that it opened up my eyes to there's a world of when you say design led, for me it's about brands or concepts that actually are significant but also meaningful. So design for design's sake, I'm really against.
Yeah.
I think we all are just way more informed these days, and we would never be sold the dream of this is a design hotel and you should use it because it looks clever and has a designer's name attached to it. I think people are way more
Or gimmicky.
discerning than that. Right.
They are. I mean,
And not
people can,
gimmicky.
guests can spot a gimmick a mile away.
So true. So and in a world where that's now on their phone and everyone's a home renovator or a designer, like that's literally the world we live in, is that you've got to be very careful with that word design led. So I think there's a time and place for it, but where my mind goes these days is that it's kind of just an expectation that when you say the return on investment analysis, I think what guests are looking for is whatever design you deploy, they're looking for the experience that's attached to it. So it can't just be,
Sure.
wow, look at that Eames chair that someone selected for the space. It's got to be, what is it actually telling us? Why is that relevant? And my passion beyond design is more, and as you can see with the name of my business, Creative Lifestyle, Hotels and Lifestyle, is the reason I went down that path was because I felt that hotels have become more than just a place to sleep and put your head and rest. In my opinion, there's this incredible merge. There's a coming together of lifestyle experiences that people want when they're on
Yes.
the road, whether that's for leisure or corporate or whatever the reason they're traveling.
And people can choose that now. There's options and people know how to find that now. And, if it's out there, there's
Exactly.
sort of a curated something for everyone now. So,
That's so
that's why
true.
people like you that are out there creating exactly the right thing, there's a market for it.
There's so much a market, and you know what it does is make the development of a hotel so much more complicated. So I'll be honest
Mm,
that we're all trying to do one-off hotels now, but at
mm.
scale. so hence that's the new challenge and the new paradigm. Even to the extent where, I mean, I don't know if you'll find this interesting, but a development executive that'll remain nameless, but at one of the big global companies, said that even their top luxury brand, yes, of course, it has standards and brand requirements, but
Sure.
basically every time they do a hotel, it's a bespoke hotel. It's no longer, so they've got to now reinvent the brand or the experience almost every time they do one. So
Wow.
it's a bespoke experience. There's a framework, but and this is, it's quite a well-known global company. And I think though what we're both saying is that it's no one size fits all. I think that the consumer is way more attentive and focused on, how it's different and how it makes them feel and how it's been designed, hopefully with them in mind, not. Whereas I think the Hilton or the Sheraton days or let's use all the big, Marriott, Accor, the days when we used to build the big hotels, the big boxes, as they say, it was literally about making a guest feel like they were always in the same environment which made them feel safe and comfortable, and it was predictable.
Absolutely right, and there's a time and a place for that, and I think the safety and the comfort and the predictability still has a lot of value, but you can
Sure.
have safety and comfort, but have a surprise and delight within that as well. That's the magic sauce, isn't it?
That's it.
So on that, I recently enjoyed living vicariously through every Instagram minute of your European scouting trip. Maybe you'll tell me. I guess that's what you call it. Was it a scouting trip? Maybe you'll tell me. I believe you have a London-based client for a significant hotel project in Paris, which I believe will be your first project in Europe. That might be still secret squirrel. I don't know. Tell me more. Tell me more.
No, no, I'll tell you more because I'm pumped, as you can see. I mean, I think once again, 9 years into a hotel consulting business now, that I think you follow once again the niche that you're in, and you follow where you know
Sure.
you can add value. The projects we've been doing in Australia led us to this, so I think it's just I'll just connect a few dots for you, but this wasn't about us, going out hunting for jobs in Europe, just to be clear. But we are very much in a global market, and so once again for your listeners, the way that the deals work in Europe or Paris, or for that matter, and the way that a hotel works in terms of financials is identical, no matter where you are
Hmm.
in the world. Currency changes,
That's
labor
so
costs might
interesting.
change, construction costs might fluctuate slightly, but the absolute fundamentals are identical.
Sure.
In fact, the challenges that they're facing there are the same top three challenges here: high
Still
construction
labor
costs,
costs, energy,
labor
construct. Yeah.
costs. Yeah, yeah, and so that's just the backdrop. I think the thing that was happening in Australia is that we're seeing probably less new build developments, and there's a reason, as we just said. There's COVID changed the whole game, and I hate necessarily talking about COVID, but what we've got to talk about is the way that the paradigm shifted in terms of real estate development,
Sure.
and
Sure.
hotels are just a function of availability of land and how it works from a
Hmm.
stacking up perspective. So we can want them as much as we like, but at the end of the day, they've got to compete with other uses like offices, and it just so happens that office is on the nose. So residential's hard. It's not so much that it's on the nose, but I think it's just a case of got its own challenges. And so what we've seen is a bunch of not just office buildings, but real estate that's being re-valued or reimagined as something else. And in the case of a couple of projects here in Australia,
Which is
we've
music
taken
to the
them from
sustainability ears, right?
oh, totally. And it's funny, isn't it? Because if you look at the market, it's helping us navigate this as opposed to us forcing sustainability onto the agenda. It's that you can't afford to knock down a building these days. All that carbon is way embedded carbon. No one will approve it. They want it adaptively redeveloped. Um,
Sure.
and pretty much that's what's happening globally. So a project that we had in WA, which is a conversion of an office building, is the same sort of project as the one in Paris, and that's why I'm drawing the parallel. And it's in an
Okay.
environment where all of a sudden whole neighborhoods, I think you've probably seen this yourself, didn't work the way they used to work pre-COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
if you think about them in terms of you and I working from our home office today,
Yeah.
our
Yes.
little cafes around the corner, they're all booming. The restaurants are booming.
Yep.
And then you go to the city and it's a bit patchy depending on what day you're in there.
That's right.
Um, I mean, Sydney's obviously coming back pretty strong, but it's kind of changed the game in terms of hotel and hospitality offerings. And I think that, you know what, Australia, as much as we might think we're a small market, which is exactly what we are from a hotel numbers point of view, the thing is that I think we're quite creative and innovative in terms of how we address problems. And so, without being at all critical of my French counterparts, because I'm not, but I think that we realised that there were some opportunities to do things differently in that market. And probably luckily enough for us is that the client seems to believe that that's what they want. They want someone to think differently, ask questions that aren't necessarily being asked through the local lens. And like I said to you earlier, whether it's London or Paris or Sydney or wherever, we're kind of being forced to, challenge these ideas of what a typical hotel looks like. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's so interesting because I know a lot of people, outside of the hotel industry, they see the news and they see how CBDs in a lot of countries, but certainly in Australia, are kind of ghost towns a few days a week because banking and finance, and depending on the sector, they can only get away with requiring their employees to work so many days a week. And if they don't want to have employee
Right.
turnover, they let them work from home a certain number of days. And so a lot of businesses have left
Totally.
the CBDs. And so now we have all these empty buildings, and people outside of hotels go, why don't they just turn those into hotels? Why don't they just redevelop those office buildings into residential buildings to solve the housing crisis? And it just ain't that simple, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Because you're bang on, because typically offices are in one precinct and residential's in another. But I think the world we're now all navigating together is that it's kind of all getting mashed in together. And I talk a lot about precinct hotels these days because
Sure.
precincts are the new way that I think a hotel either completes a precinct really nicely or it can anchor a precinct. So office, childcare centre, might even have a health facility. We're doing some work with medical related hospitals,
Okay.
anything that's infrastructure. So universities, all of these things go together quite nicely. And of course, it creates a demand for hotel rooms.
That's interesting. And maybe you can educate me here, but when I hear precinct or a district, I think of, and I know you've done some exploratory trips around New York as well, not so much the Dumbo area, but like the High Line area of New York City. Like,
Yeah.
is that a similar precinct to what you're describing, where they've redeveloped and repurposed
Yeah.
a lot of facilities there? And there are some very funky, edgy hotels there as well. Is that a similar
Right.
thing? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Well, I mean, on a grand scale, Hudson Yard did it incredibly well with hotels,
Yes.
office. The other thing I'd throw in there these days is wellness. Wellness has become the new.
Yeah, of course.
So
Of
forget the
course.
hotel gym. I'm kind of at a point where people
Oh,
go, "Oh yeah, we'll put
gosh.
a gym in the hotel," and it's like, are we still
They're
talking
empty.
about
No one's ever in
a
them.
50 square? Yeah,
Buy
no one's in them.
Owners spend all this money on
They're
equipment and
incredibly.
nobody's ever in there, and it's usually in a basement and they're empty.
That's right, and I think it's because, Shannon, we all know how we're spoiled, right? So most people are spending incredible amount of money on their personal health and well-being outside of the hotel
Yes.
environment. So when they get to the hotel gym, they're like, "Well, this is just not up to scratch."
Yeah.
And so they're not even bothering. But where I've identified a huge opportunity, and I'm not saying it's me, but it's in the market, is that operators or brands that are kind of leaning into that space and going, what used to be maybe the idea of a spa, right? The in-house spa, which by the way never really made money, is incredibly hard
Mm.
because you've got to have therapists on board to service the client. In other words, it's very labor intensive. The new way of doing wellness is the opposite. It's all about self guided. I don't need someone to massage me or whatever. I have this routine. I have sauna. I have bath. I have, and it's pretty much, I know what I'm doing because I've kind of done it in my own time. And so when I rock up to a facility, as long as it's all clearly marked, and this is the kind of Gurner model where he's just in the absolute premium end of the market, but where I rock up and I kind of have all the facilities on site and I can use everything I like, and then I can leave and It's a very much on my own time, um,
On
with
your
all my
terms.
needs being met on my terms. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that fascinates me because in the P&L of a hotel, it used to be not even a feature, as in a gym would not even be an income stream. And yet I believe that the kind of market's demanding more, and I think that guests will ultimately pay for it, but in a way where it's got to be state of the art, it's got to be high
Sure.
quality. Um, your other point is very valid, which is that how many hotel gyms have I been in where the lights are not even on? They haven't filled up the water,
It's just
bottles
sad.
in months.
Doesn't actually inspire wellness.
Exactly. And I use that word incredibly broadly. Like I'm not talking about, meditation, but the gurus. I'm talking about people caring about themselves in whatever shape or
Yes.
form, whether that's a gym session or a meditation session or breath work. There's all these things now that we've got access to. So it's a bit like your in-room entertainment. People are pretty much know what they want and they've got it with them. They just need the space and the facility to do it. That's what they're looking for.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Um, a question for you. So as you go through these different projects and opportunities and the all important
Mm.
due diligence. You may not want to answer this one,
Yeah.
but
Mm.
on the topic of due diligence disasters, in all your years of acquisitions and development, was there ever a bizarre thing uncovered during due diligence in one of these projects that almost killed a deal?
Like the good news is no, like there hasn't. So I'm kind of, but I guess what I've seen is all the good, the bad, the ugly. And I'll give you two quick stories. One was just in London, and I had this great experience at the Standard Hotel in London because
It's very edgy, isn't it? The Standard. It's a very special brand.
it's a very
Very edgy.
it's a very cool
Yeah.
brand, and I think
Yeah.
let's hope Hyatt really do it justice. I think they will.
Yes.
But this is what happened. They showed me a room in the building, and this is again another conversion of an office building. So it just so happened to be that. But the floor plates were a little challenging, and they said, and this is
Mm.
our internal room with no windows. And I was like, oh, really? And I was like, already I don't like it. And they kind of
Yeah.
walked, this is part of the hotel inspection. But I walked in and it was, what they'd done is created an internal, basically an internal balcony that didn't have a view, obviously, but an internal garden.
Like an atrium?
Yes, but it didn't have any natural light. So imagine that
Ooh.
concept of an internal garden type thing, which is adjacent to the bathroom. So it made it feel like there was something to look at. But they said,
Uh-huh.
listen, this is our entry level room that now gets utilized by a ton of entertainers who don't need natural light and want the kind of real sanctuary type of offering. And
I mean, that sort of room type, just putting my revenue manager's hat on, that sort of room type is very good for airline crew segment as well. They love that because they're only in there for, a few
airline
hours. They
crew.
don't want natural
Exactly.
light in and out. So it's good for airline crew. But if you don't have a crew, ugh.
That's it. And I think listen, it's not for everyone, but it's also markets where you can do that. And I think they were saying they've turned it into a positive. So my point is don't ever rule it out. I think you can create sort of experiences with let's call it average real estate. And that's just a good innovative way of addressing a problem, because otherwise this hotel perhaps would have had 20 less rooms. I don't know, maybe. And I think it was worth it. I think it was worth taking that on.
Yeah.
So I sort of say, why not? And kind of, and then I guess, you question more broadly around due diligence and it's always fraught with, you're always asking questions of the incumbent operator that's there. So you kind of got to be respectful and yet really honest and kind of direct with,
Yes.
if you're helping someone to navigate the purchase of an asset, or at least tell them what you think, then my point is you've got to be really honest.
Yeah.
So I think you and I have been in enough hotels where you can tell from the minute you approach the website or walk into a hotel how it feels like it's being run.
Yeah.
And I might just leave it at that. It doesn't mean that
Yeah.
there's, I've got anything to uncover. It's more just that that's just part of the job, right?
It is. And, it isn't just that it's, someone's money, but it's someone's livelihood, whether it's, an owner operator who
Yep.
is, cashed in their super and bought a tiny little 20-room property somewhere and they're going to live in it and manage it. That's still their livelihood. It's their
Sure.
lifestyle. It's their life. Or
Sure.
if it's,
Yep.
a major owner that owns 20 hotels across a country, it's still their livelihood and it's important. So, I think that's probably why your integrity approach has served you very well, Andrew Taylor.
No, that's a good point. And I'm not an investment. I don't give investment advice, but I would say that
No.
everything can be priced. It's, in other words, you can always put a number to it, and it's fixable. That's probably the way I would say. But and one of the other trickiest things I think we all still have to navigate in every hotel, that is the people side of the business. Like for as much as it's a due diligence exercise, the bottom line is that if you, and this is where I can honestly say I've not necessarily got it wrong, but I've seen the challenges up close, is when you change things in an asset. So you go, I might be doing this major renovation. It's going to be beautiful and it's going to be stunning and everyone's going to be on board with it. And then you find out that the staff are pretty pissed off about it, or they're unhappy, or they're disgruntled, or someone else is upset, like the supplier got offside. My point is that it's actually change is just part of that challenge.
When you say next generation hotels, I'm curious, Andrew, from your perspective, what are the next key, and you've touched on this a little bit already, but what
Mm.
are the next key guest expectations that you believe traditional operators are still catching up to?
Could talk hours on this.
I
But
know that could be
in
another
a
whole
nutshell,
podcast.
no, it starts at the front door. I mean, it not only starts there. Obviously, it starts in your world with the search, right? But if I'm honest, I think the experience starts at the street. Is kind of how we describe it to our partners and our stakeholders and designers. And I think the problem is that culturally, the minute you step into a hotel, and this is where I've got a problem with the name. The
Yes.
name makes us. It kind of brings up all these connotations of, why am I there? Whereas if
Sure.
I'm going to a venue or something else that's so happens to be in a hotel, or it's part of a precinct, it kind of doesn't matter. And I
Sure.
guess my point is that breaking down the boundaries of what's in the hotel and external to the hotel, for me, is really interesting. To the point where you're probably familiar with this idea in Italy that whole towns have been turned into hotels. So
Yes.
they're not contiguous, but they're kind of saying, well, here's the hotel that you book, but your breakfast might be in the house down the road. And your room might be in number 34 down the street on that. And I kind of go, this is the whole deconstructed idea, but and I'm not saying this
Of
is
the
what's going to
accommodation
happen.
away from home experience.
Right. And
Yeah.
Airbnb, of course,
Yeah.
did it in a
Interesting.
different way. And I'm not, I'm kind of not suggesting they've got the answer either, but I'm just sort of saying that that's probably on one end of the spectrum. The other thing about next generation is you got to only look at Marriott, and someone else made a big play into the outdoor hotel concepts. So the cabin idea.
Oh, sure.
There's I think it's Hyatt and Marriott. They've both bought or made significant investments in small cabin operators. So watch that space, because the outdoor accommodation experience is growing.
And
And I
it's
think,
not
again,
just
what it does
glamping,
is
isn't it? It's really more than that.
exactly. And I think well, to your point, it's exponential in terms of what it could be. It could be
Yeah,
this idea of glamping one day, and then, it's got, luxury villas as well. I mean, it's just
yeah.
all of that. And then I think the only other thing I just mentioned just briefly is that we're seeing a real influx of hospitality experts. So coming from food and beverage or nightlife or entertainment into hotels. So it's kind
Yes.
of because they go, well, we've already done the hard part. We already know how difficult that is, but we're actually good at that part.
Mm.
Why wouldn't we just bolt on 100 rooms to our business in the case of some much bigger venues? And again, I won't mention who those parties are or could be, but you just have to think about the large, the significant players in our own market, as in hospitality providers. And you can imagine that if they did a hotel, what that might look like, and it could be quite successful or quite interesting, to say the least.
Just on what you were just saying then, with that kind of deconstructed hospitality experience concept, with your developer's crystal ball hat on, do you think that then is the trend in hotel development that you're betting on? And do you think other people might think that's crazy? Or is there maybe another development trend that you're betting on that people who aren't
Yeah.
in the game might think is a bit cray cray?
I think I'm okay to be called, off center on that. I think that's a compliment. I'll take it. But I mean, answering your question sort of seriously, I think the trend is hotels that are not in traditional hotel locations. And I'll give you a couple of examples. But imagine the Eve in Sydney, right? So Redfern / Surrey Hills.
Yeah.
It's a kind of notorious location
And is
in
that
terms of
another area you would describe as a precinct? Is that a precinct category?
it's definitely a precinct. Yep.
Yeah,
And I think that's how they overcome locations.
sure.
But when you see the rates that they're asking for in the market at $5, $6, $7, $800 a night for it's a beautiful product. But if you imagine 10 years ago saying to someone, we're going to do a hotel of that ilk in Redfern, I think they would have been laughed at. And someone like the Vidal family or TFE, obviously, they very much
Yeah,
back there themselves. And the
sure,
attitude is, this is a winner. And I would
sure.
agree. So I guess my point is, hotels aren't always in the most obvious locations, which when I was a baby development person, like a novice, that would have been point number one, is get your demand story right. And in terms of
Yes.
location, is it in amongst the demand? And I think what we're seeing is that there are ways in which to kind of build demand based on, new precincts and new infrastructure.
And new customer types and new guest types. I mean, any revenue
Exactly.
manager, at least, the really savvy ones these days will tell you that there's new segments being born every day, and there's new
Nice.
customer types and new reasons for travel that if they're not developing themselves, we can create them. And that's happening all the
Love it.
time. And so if we have a precinct or a brand that meets that, then that's where it works.
That's nice to hear, because I don't want to be alone in this. We need the we need the kind of, the when all the help we can get, Shannon. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah,
So And your for general managers or hotel revenue managers, maybe, who secretly dream of developing their own property or their own brand.
Mm.
What's a reality check that you think they need to hear before they quit their day job?
I mean, it's yeah, that's a fascinating question because I sort of think about it still from my own perspective about how I could
Sure.
go the other way. And as you know, I've done a few ventures of my own where I've meddled in the operations and I go, oh goodness, this is me completely out of my depth. And yet, um, yeah, I love being involved with people and collaboratively and working with them as from designers through to the people who are going to execute for you. But, you know, if I'm the GM going the other way,
Just from end to end, right? That whole process. Yeah.
yeah. And it's because I think the life of a consultant can be where it does get slightly hard to accept. And I've just noticed over the years is that we're not at it's not our property at the end of the day. So we can
Yeah.
kind of give all the advice and all the
Hands off.
create some amazing ideas and suggestions and help navigate and provide guidance, but we're not actually calling the shots. But you know, that's okay. I think you and I, we can live with it. It's just that we sometimes maybe want a little bit more. But you know, for those GMs, I would just say that it's a business that is got so many facets to it and so kind of complex at times, but you kind of just got to be across all of them. And I mean that in the sense of the way you would build a hotel team is the same way that you would build a development team. You have experts in their field, you know, giving you the right advice, like the designers, the architects, but you've also got to have somebody that is the, I call it like the spiritual guide
Guide.
for the
Like
project.
a Sherpa.
Yeah, a Sherpa.
A Sherpa
Because
to
like
guide
in
you
the
up.
absence
Yeah.
of that, yeah, like I think hotels that don't have that and that identity of who they are, again, I think you can feel it when you walk in. It's like it could be working, but it's like, does it really go to that next level?
Yes, I mean, you and I have both been, I'm sure, in properties where, I've walked in and it's a strong brand and they have thousands of rooms and it's amazing and it's thousands of dollars a night and they have all these services and the reservations and arrival experience was amazing and luxurious. But then you get within the property and it just feels soulless. You're going, oh, it's nice chairs and mirrors everywhere. And okay, it's everything they said it would be, but it's just soulless and I feel nothing. And I'm not going to go out of my way to go back.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. And, you know, the life of a development guy is that you got to, you know, you win some, you lose some. So you kind of, you definitely lose more than you win. And I think, I mean, you know, the kind of bit I love is, yeah, being associated with obviously the ones that we can all talk about, but they only are probably
Yeah,
5% of the ones that we've all looked at together. And
sure.
I think, you
Sure.
know, we've done them together, Shannon. Like I never look back and go, oh, that's
Yeah.
something I did. It was more like, wow, that was an amazing project to be a part of with many, many other
Yeah.
people. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. In fact, you see that orange hard hat that sits on the bookshelf here in my home
yeah,
office? That was
yeah.
given to me in the Mirvac days. I think it must have been on one of the Sea Temple projects. And I was going there and
Oh
we were
wow,
working out room types and square meters of room types and market segments or something. And we were on a property tour. And I was given that orange hard hat. So, of course, I kept it. And then I wore it at every
love it.
opportunity, even when I absolutely did not need to be wearing a hard hat. Like politicians who wear high vis vests and they really don't have to have it on.
Yeah,
So I keep
of
that hard hat for the same reason.
course. That's it. That's it. Because you're a part of it, and nothing better than seeing it come out of the ground, as they say.
So we close each hotelier huddle with a final toast. Andrew
Hmm.
Taylor, if you were raising a glass to celebrate hoteliers everywhere, what would your toast be?
I I must be getting old, Shannon, because where my head
No, it's not
goes with this
possible.
one is a toast to the yeah, I know, to the next generation of young developers,
Yeah.
and obviously that's where my world came from, and I think I'd love to see them have a career or at least an experience similar to me. So I've been very fortunate, and I'd say, go and have a go, create brands, create concepts, like we did at Mirvac, create a company, whatever that is, or improve the company that you're in by doing projects of meaning and value, and that would be it.
That's beautiful. And do you know, as a matter of fact, I've actually gotten 2 bits of very strong motivation about the next generation recently, because I've just interviewed 2 hospitality school students who've just gotten their first job in
Nice.
hotels. It was just actually really encouraging, and it gave me a lot of hope for the next generation, Andrew. So,
Inspiring.
I love your toast.
I'm glad to hear it, mate, but it's not surprising. I think we're in good hands, right?
I think the hotel industry is in good hands. I agree. Thank you very much. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Andrew Taylor, for joining the Hotelier Huddle today. I appreciate it. Good to see you.
Pleasure. I had a great time. Thanks for having me on, Shannon. Loved it.